Have you ever felt like an anime came into your life at exactly the right time? Not that generic feeling of, oh, this is good, but that specific thing of watching a scene and thinking, this was made for me. That's exactly how people are describing Witch Hat Atelier. And if you still haven't figured out why this anime suddenly became a topic everywhere all at once, stay with me, because the answer is going to go deeper than you expect. Let's start from the beginning. Coco is an ordinary girl who grew up in a world where magic exists, but not the way you're used to seeing it in anime. Here, magic isn't a gift you're born with. There's no special bloodline, no family of sorcerers, no destiny written in the stars. In this universe, magic is drawn, literally. Witches use special quills to trace symbols called glyphs, and those glyphs come to life when completed with precision. It's a visual language, a form of art that anyone could, in theory, learn. But there's a catch. That secret is forbidden. There's a very old rule that says non-witches cannot know how magic works. Whoever finds out pays an enormous price. And Coco, through pure curiosity and bad luck, finds out. She sees something she was never supposed to see, and that moment changes absolutely everything in her life. Now, why is this different from everything else you've ever watched? Because Witch Hat Atelier doesn't use its magic system just as a backdrop. It uses it as an argument. The question the anime asks from the very first episode is, why do some people have access to knowledge and others don't? Who decided that? And what happens to those who choose to ignore that rule? This isn't a story about power. It's a story about access. And once you start seeing it that way, the entire anime changes color. Every scene carries a different weight. Every character holds a layer that goes far beyond what appears on the surface. Let's talk about the characters, because this is where Witch Hat Atelier truly shines, in a way very few anime can manage. Coco isn't your typical heroine. She doesn't have a hidden power waiting to explode. She isn't the most talented in the class. In fact, she struggles. She makes mistakes. She looks at more skilled classmates and feels that familiar sting, the one that comes from wanting something that seems natural to everyone but you. But she keeps going, not because she's strong, because she's stubborn in the most human way possible. There's Agate, who is technically superior to Coco in almost everything, and who carries an arrogance you'll initially despise until you understand where it comes from. There's Riche, who hides a condition that directly interferes with the way she draws her glyphs, and whose story will break your heart in a way you won't see coming. There's Tetya, who seems like the lighter character in the group until you realize just how much she absorbs everyone else's pain without ever showing her own. And then there's Quifri, their teacher, a man with enough secrets to fill 2 entire anime series, who splits the viewer's attention between I want to trust him and this guy is hiding way too much. What makes these characters special is that none of them exist purely in service of the protagonist. Each one has a life, a past, a goal that goes beyond helping Coco grow. They grow alongside her, and sometimes they grow in the opposite direction, which creates tensions far more interesting than any epic battle ever could. Speaking of battles, this is not an action anime, and that needs to be said clearly, because anyone who comes in expecting spectacular combat will be disappointed within the first few minutes. Witch Hat Atelier is slow, deliberate, it builds, and when something finally explodes, emotionally or literally, the impact is proportional to everything that was built before it. There's a specific moment in the series, no heavy spoilers, where one of the apprentices has to use everything she's learned in a life-or-death situation, and the camera doesn't cut to the result. It stays right there, in silence, following the process, the trembling hands, the hesitation, the decision to keep going even while terrified. It's the kind of scene you watch without holding your breath, without realizing it, and you only exhale when the music stops. That's the rhythm of Witch Hat Atelier. It demands your attention, and it rewards every single second of it. Now let's talk about where all of this came from, because the series has a behind-the-scenes story that's almost as interesting as the work itself. Witch Hat Atelier is a manga created by Kamome Shirahama, published since 2016. Shirahama is an artist who started her career in doujinshi, independent works outside the official industry. She built a fan base over years before managing to publish through official channels, and when she did, she brought with her a completely different perspective on what a fantasy manga could be. Her art style is unique. Every page looks like a handcrafted illustration made with obsessive care. Backgrounds detailed to the point where you want to pause and examine every corner. Clothing with textures you can almost feel. And the magic, the glyphs, drawn with a beauty and precision that makes sense within the universe. You look at the magic system and believe it works because the art convinces you before the text even explains it. The anime adaptation was produced by Studio Signal MD, directed by Hirotaka Mori, and arrived in 2025. The concern that always exists when a manga with such specific artwork gets an animated adaptation turned out to be completely unnecessary. The anime not only captured the original's aesthetic, it added a layer of movement and sound the manga could never offer. Every glyph creation scene becomes a sensory experience. You hear the scratch of the quill. You watch the glyph come to life in real time. It's beautiful in a way that makes you want to re-watch the scene. And the soundtrack. Let me talk about the soundtrack. It's subtle in exactly the right way. It doesn't try to draw attention to itself. It appears when it needs to, fades away when silence speaks louder, and carries a tone that oscillates between enchantment and melancholy without ever fully committing to either. It fits perfectly with an anime that treats magic not as power, but as responsibility. There's a political layer to the story that becomes clearer as you go deeper. The Brimmed Hats, the organization that polices the use of magic and guards the secret, are initially presented as the obvious antagonists, but the anime is too smart to leave it there. Gradually, you begin to understand that they're not simply villains. They're the result of a system that was built for specific reasons by people who believed they were doing the right thing. And the question that hangs in the air is when a system built to protect begins to oppress, who bears the responsibility to change it? It's the kind of question you carry out of the anime with you. For those who've already watched Frieren, Made in Abyss, or Kino's Journey, Hat Atelier will feel familiar in that sense, not in style, but in its willingness to ask questions without rushing to answer them. These are anime that treat the viewer like an adult, that trust your ability to sit with ambiguity, that understand a good story doesn't need easy resolutions. But Hat Atelier has something that sets it apart even within that group. There's a specific tenderness to it, a gentleness in the way it treats its characters, even when it places them in impossible situations. You can feel that the creator loves these people, and that comes through on screen in a way that's hard to describe, but impossible not to feel. In the end, Coco's story is about what we do when the world decides that some dreams aren't ours to dream, about the cost of ignoring that decision, about what you're willing to risk for the right to learn, to grow, to exist outside the role that was written for you. She has no special power, no divine protection. She has a quill, a parchment, and an absolute refusal to accept that the impossible doesn't belong to her. And that refusal in itself is already a form of magic. So here's the question that stays with you. If the only thing standing between you and everything you've ever wanted was a rule created by someone you never met, what would you choose to draw?